Hello there, just in time for Sidebar. My name is Trevor Mbija. Listen, the hashtag is Sidebar. Twitter handles at Trevor Mbija at NTV Kenya. And of course, you can always call in. It's your show. So I'm just conducting business around here. Thanks for tuning in. Let me introduce my guest real quick. Honorable Beatrice Elachi, also nominated Senator and candidate for Dagoretti North Member of Parliament. Honorable Gladys Wanga, Homa Bay Women Rep. Honorable Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Makueni Senator. And we're still waiting for Honorable Johnson Sakaja, nominated Member of Parliament and also Nairobi Senate candidate. When he shows up, we'll start the discussion. Thanks for making time for us, people.
You're most welcome.
Quick, the week in 60 seconds.
Kama mahakama itabadilisha hiyo sheria, hakuna uchaguzi Kenya. Sisi kama wananasa hatutakubali kwenda Bomas tena.
Judges know their duty. They will live by their oaths of office, and they are not going to be influenced in any manner whatsoever by any statements that will be made.
I would expect some other person to file this appeal, but not the commission.
I was to check whether it was of good quality and to assure maize which is fit for human consumption.
Sell it at subsidized prices so that we get the 90 shillings for 2 packets to our Kenyans.
A similar intervention has also been taken on milk and sugar.
Due to public demand, I have decided to honor the wishes of the people of Kiambu. Nitakuwa kwa ballot.
And that's exactly where we start from. And let's start with you, Honorable Elachi. You come from one of the biggest parties, that's Jubilee, and of course also Mutula Kilonzo is there with the NASA side, some of the biggest parties, the political parties in the country today. Can you honestly say you're proud of how the nominations were carried out?
Well, first of all, I'll say, yes, I'm proud. And not just for Jubilee, I think for all parties, because you remember there was a time we kept on reminding ourselves as political parties that it is important for us to, in future, to look at whether IEBC can support us or assist in managing all these processes. Because one, we have 6 ballots. It's not like before when we used to have 210 constituencies and therefore you have a minimal way of where you fight it. Look at today, we are going to an election where we have 9,000 MCAs going to vie now. And you can imagine this came now from political parties. So for me, first of all, I am proud that it's Jubilee, it's ODM, it's Wiper. We've done those nominations. We've learned our lessons. There are many lessons that we've learned. But at the same time, I'm hoping IEBC has also learned lessons through all those processes.
But Senator, how would you justify that? And yet we've seen so many complaints. For Nairobi, for example, Peter Kenneth up to date is not sure whether he lost or won. In fact, he said, I did not lose, it was stolen. In Kiambu, Kafogo claimed that there were powers that did not want him to run, but now he's decided to go independent. In Starehe, for example, there was one declared a leader, and then now it was given back to another person.
Well,
how can you justify that?
The best is every person has gone through a process. That if you felt that at the political parties level you did not find justice, you move on to the tribunal of the political parties. If you find justice there and people feel that it is rightful now given to you, you appreciate and move on. If you don't, you have now the high courts, and you know there, whatever we are told as political parties, we have to follow, because now that's the law. But at the same time, I know there are lots we have to also carry and start appreciating as politicians, that there is no politician who will ever say, I have lost. In fact, I've realized going 2022, I think the best is everyone just go independent. Okay. So that you don't complain and do this. Just carry your bag, your soldier on, be an independent candidate, and meet all of you at the ballot.
And we have a record number for independent candidates.
And it shows that that is what will happen in 2022.
Honorable Mutula, what did you make of the nomination? Wiper, for example, in Machakos had to carry it more than twice.
Let me just say that the nominations leave a lot to be desired. And I say so advisedly because the purpose of party primaries is not so much to have winning candidates as the ultimate result. They're supposed to build political parties, to the extent, therefore, that the people who lose are supposed to support the winning candidate. That is what happens. But what is the case now? The case now is that everybody who lost, and majority of them, have become independent candidates. So therefore, the question should be, did we achieve the purpose for which we have political party primaries? And let me explain what the problem is, and Beatrice Elach is here, because we argued in the Senate until midnight about their push for the amendment of the law in changing the timelines. This crisis has been caused, and we must say so, because of the change of the timelines from where we sat with my colleague senator in the select committee where I proposed timelines. If you look at the constitution, the people who are supposed to come first are the independent candidates, and therefore pave way for political party primaries. In the wisdom of the tyranny of numbers, we changed the timelines, hence the reason why you have independent candidates. So you have not achieved the objective. People now are confused because you have so many people competing on an independent party platform. And then the result you should ask, and nobody is asking that question. In the Senate, in the National Assembly, and any other place where all of us sit, we have two sides. One for the majority, one for the minority. Where will the independent candidates sit? Those are some of the issues that we need to address as a country. Okay. So a lot to be desired. We must change the formula, we must change the law, we must change the law to the extent, therefore, that people must get justice in their political parties. My own desire would be that the people who lose in primary support the candidates who win, so that then we can build political parties. Otherwise, the idea of merging Jubilee, for example, to one political party after 13, and then what my colleague is saying, that in 2022, either become an independent candidate or form many political parties, is defeated by the fact that we have not complied with what the Constitution intended.
Let me bring in on Boang on this. Anyway, and you are one of the beneficiaries. You actually got a direct nomination. What did you make of the nominations that happened?
Yeah, let me just clarify that I was unopposed. I did not get a direct nomination. I did not have an opponent. So direct nomination is where the party sits and decides that we will give you instead of anybody else. Yes. But unopposed means the party has no other choice but to give you the ticket because there's no other person competing. Okay,
that was in your case, but generally was the nominations free and fair?
I'd just like to say that the capacity of political parties to conduct nominations by universal suffrage within the resources that they have, I think has to be really evaluated.
Yes.
Because what political parties were trying to do with just a few millions is what IEBC does with the billions that they are allocated. Because they were literally holding, like ODM, in each and every polling station, in like say the counties where I come from, each and every polling station was voting for 6 people. The candidates also, I mean, the other question is, there are so many candidates that showed interest. The MCA is just going to be one person. But then you have 17 people, 24 people applying for that single
seat position.
So that's another question that has to be asked. I think then there is the role of the aspirants in this whole bungling, because the blame is now put squarely on the door of political parties. But you find that political parties try, they bring ballot papers, they bring ballot boxes, then aspirants come with goons, they crash ballot papers, and then they come back to the political party and say, can you tell us who won? Okay, how is the political party supposed to decide who won when the actual nomination, you came and you disrupted it, and then you come back? So it is a reflection of also who we are. And we have to look at, are political parties really going to be able, moving forward, to conduct universal suffrage nominations on their own and come out with something? And as far as independents go, I think what we did was just what Senator said, and even Beatrice, and they both sat in the select committee that came up with the law that we passed without amending a comma or a full stop, because there was just too much in contention that we didn't want to open it up. What we said, okay, we are closing party hopping, but we left open party hopping in this name of independence, creating a major crisis, because independent was not supposed to be a political party. Independent is supposed to be in very exceptional circumstances. But then we locked everyone into these political parties, but left them room only to become independent. So we are staring a major crisis as we move forward for reasons that Senator has said, which is, where will these independents sit?
Okay.
Where will they sit?
And that's a good place
and sit physically, one, but two, also in terms of the whole setting of parliament.
How will they become members of committees?
Who will be their leader?
Who will be their leader? How are we going to vote speakers? You know, those are issues, because we have numbers. She's my colleague here is a leader of majority because she has a certain number of people.
Because there's a majority.
She whips a number of people to vote and come and vote. But when you have independent candidates, so many of them, in a place like the Senate, where we have a minimum threshold of 24, one vote counts. One vote is so important that we had a crisis because of one senator who walked in late.
All right, let's take a short break here and on Sidebar. When we come back, Johnson Sakaja is joining us, and we're getting into the issue of the nominations versus the elections. Stay with Sidebar. Thanks for staying with Sidebar. The hashtag is Sidebar. We're talking about the nominations and elections that are coming up. You can tweet, you can call in anytime. I have my guest here with me, Honorable Johnson Sakaja, nominated Member of Parliament and also Nairobi Senate candidate, has just joined us. Speaking of the elections, let me play something the NASA presidential flag bearer said earlier on.
Naonya IBC, hatutakubali. Hata mahakama hatutakubali. Kama mahakama itabadilisha hiyo sheria, hakuna uchaguzi Kenya. Hiyo haitakuwa ni uchaguzi wetu. Hiyo itakuwa ni uchaguzi wao, sio uchaguzi ambao umefanyika kwa mujibu wa sheria na katiba ya taifa letu. Sawa, maana yake wanataka kutumia hiyo kuiba kura.
Kama IBC watatoa hiyo rufani, wana Kenya tutaandamana Nakuru, Nairobi, Kisumu, Machakos, kila mahali.
Let's start with you, Mutul. And you said that nominations leave a lot to be desired.
Yes.
How then do you have the moral ground to lecture IBC on how they should carry out their elections?
We are not lecturing them.
That was almost like a direct threat. That if the ruling doesn't go according to plan, then there'll be a boycott of the election. Those
are two different things. So therefore, you should be asking me two different questions. But let me answer your first one.
Let's start with the first one.
These ladies and gentlemen at the IBC are performing a public duty, and therefore we have a right. We don't need any moral right or anything. We have a right to ask them questions. And let me just explain, because I sat in the Joint Select Committee with Senator Elachi here. When we amended the law, the Elections Act, to provide a formula as to how the elections will be announced at polling stations for purposes of the presidential election, and I'm referring to this amendment to Section 39 of the Elections Act so that it's in line with Article 138(2) and 10. IBC were part and parcel of that process. We sat with them. We asked them, do you agree with this? They said, we have no problem with it. The only other additions that we did was to add a portion where they would have to transmit the elections through a public portal using the technology that is proposed in the new law. Now, it's a contradiction for them. Maybe Chebukati, in getting into the office in the manner that we did, missed the memo. Maybe the memo, Isaac didn't just give him the memo, that it is them who we agreed at this process. Because the Constitution is clear that elections, the presidential elections will be held at constituencies, 290 of them, and they will tally the result there and send to the tallying center for purposes of doing the 25, the two conditions set out in the presidential petition, that is the 50+1 and the other one of the 25 in the 25 counties. Okay. So first, let me say this. My colleague has mentioned, and we are all on record as saying, our desired result, those of us who sat to do all these laws, to make these amendments, was that we would have primaries that were peaceful, we would not have all this chaos. But circumstances and the manner in which, and I've said the law, we changed the law thinking that it was going to help us. It didn't help us. So we found ourselves in unenviable circumstances, in unenviable timelines, and then we messed the process ourselves. So as a legislator, I want to say that I did my role in saying that it was wrong to change the timelines, and therefore I still hold high moral ground myself to tell IEBC, since you accepted the job and you know why your predecessors left office, then you must be able to agree for lectures, criticisms, day in, day out.
Sakaja, what do you make of the threats by NASA to boycott the elections? And I know it's a court case, so we are not going to go into the merits of the case per se, but this is something that is in the public domain.
I think, first of all, please allow me to congratulate my colleagues for all making it through the primaries, in whichever manner they all did. One was very blessed, not to have any opponent.
No, there are two. You as well. There was no opponent.
It's surprising, the level of competition that my friend had to face, and myself, Beatrice. Congratulations, and I think it's just a show of trust that the people have on you. I want to also thank the people of Nairobi for the 168,000 votes I got. I'll differ slightly with Mutula on one issue. Political parties are also very public institutions, and I think Kenyans deserve the same threshold of accountability when party primaries are conducted, as what we demand of the IBC. Of course, parties were doing this with a fraction of the budget the IBC has to do pretty similar exercise, and we need to really look at the issue of how we fund our political parties. What holds this country together, is the rule of law. It is not the rule of man. It is not my way or the highway. It is not that if things don't favor me, then I throw my toys to the corner. And to hear such high-ranking officials, threatening the court and threatening the institution, that if a court case goes a certain way, and I've heard Duale being criticized when he was talking about Odunga's ruling, which was Odunga's, Odunga's ruling, which was, after the fact. And once a judge has ruled, you can accept it. Of course, you have to abide by it, but you can criticize it. It's out there.
Okay, so hold that thought. We have a call online, then I'll let you finish your thought. Phoebe, good evening.
I'm a cutter.
All right, go ahead.
This is before the judge's rule. That you're saying that if you don't rule the way we want you to rule, we will not, we'll boycott the elections, we will disrupt voting. And that is just warning a crisis, creating a crisis in advance. And we're also looking at the judiciary, because the judiciary must not pander to the whims of threats of any political party. So that if now, because of that determines the ruling, then we'll have serious questions on the independence of the judiciary. So I think it's something that must be condemned. I think we must let institutions perform their roles, and let us audit the results of that. Even if they rule how they want to rule, there is room for appeal.
But does it concern you that Article 86, and you can bring up my screen, guys, and it says that every election, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission shall ensure, Article B is where it gets interesting, the votes cast are counted, tabulated, and the results announced promptly by the presiding officer at each polling station. And that's almost the same question that Jay Kubasu here on Twitter is asking. How comes ROs are not trusted to transmit results as final by IEBC? Are they not part of the IEBC?
You said you don't want to discuss the merits or the merits of the case.
We're not discussing the merits. That's the constitution.
That's the content of the case that you're talking about. The case is about declaration of results. There's a difference between announcement of a result and declaration. Our laws designate the chairman of the IEBC as a person who announces the final result of the presidential election. What
we have no problem with that.
What our friends want is to convert 290 returning officers to also be presidential returning officers. They are allowed to announce the results. They must announce the results. We have no problem with that. Of course, they must announce it. We must know what you have. But the person who has the mandate, the person who is, in fact, vetted and has gone through all that process to ensure that everything that has been announced, in every polling station, for instance, If in Dagoretti North, St. George's Primary School polling station, they give Uhuru Kenyatta 1 million votes.
Okay.
And it is announced, you know, yet even the registered voters, they are not enough. The one person who has the authority to go through every form to make sure the addition is correct is the presidential returning officer. Okay. And that is the chairman of the
Before we get into that, I'll give you a chance to respond. Let me take a caller real quick. Let me just take a caller real quick.
Don't allow Sagaja to confuse us.
Hold on one second. Good evening, Charles. Go ahead with your comment or question.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Charles from Kayole.
Yes.
My point of concern, and also I'm telling Mr. Mutua right now,
is
regarding the kind of sentiments that we are hearing from, Mr. Raila Odinga. We appreciate he is a good leader. But please, we are forgetting that the same sentiments were the same that were said before the 2007 election.
All right.
And having that confidence, it's first of all worrisome. Now, again, I go to the other side of Mr. Sakaja. I very much appreciate the fact that he realizes and that the rule of law, there is some set rules that we need to follow.
All right.
But also I like the way he has just told Mr. Mutula Kilonzo, that we should not merge these issues regarding the rule of law and then the court in the proceedings of the court.
All right. Thanks, Charles.
Yes. So
thank you.
We should desist from that.
All right.
But all the same, we should be cautious.
Thanks, Charles. You already made your point. Honorable Wanga, you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah,
the issue that Sakaja is saying.
And Senator correctly said we shouldn't allow Sakaja to confuse us. What we're talking about here is a constitutional issue. It's not about what we want. It's not about what looks good. Yeah. And you have just read 86B, isn't it?
Yes.
You've read 86B that speaks to all results being tallied, counted, and announced by the presiding officer at the polling station.
Yes.
If you read C, it speaks to these results being collated by the returning officer. Results from polling stations shall be collated by the returning officer. So the person who's referred to in the Constitution as a returning officer is the person who collates results from polling stations. And then you go to 138 that then speaks to the issue of in case you have more than 2 candidates in a presidential election, elections shall be conducted in each of the 290 constituencies.
Yeah.
A constituency is defined in the Constitution 89. It defines that we have 290 constituencies. So what IBC has done through these regulations that were nullified by the courts, without speaking about the court case, what IBC has done is to convert Kenya into one big constituency and make this principal returning officer, who's the chair of IBC, the returning officer for the presidential elections. What we are saying is he can announce the results.
Okay.
But what we are against is changing what the returning officers have announced, or this thing called...
But you don't know whether that's going to be changed.
The first thing, these results are called provisional. Provisional means temporary. But the Constitution does not anticipate a situation where you have temporary results.
Okay.
Let's
bring in Lachi on this.
Let me say this. And I think in the Select Committee we were very clear. In the Elections Act 2016, it comes out very clear, and that is what we agreed, that indeed at the constituency level, the presidential results will be announced and submitted to the National Tallying Center. And the results, and I know that is where now we are having a bone of contention with our brothers, that the results at the national level are tallied and verified at the National Tallying Center. Now, when you look at the Constitution also in 2013, and I remember in the Select Committee we agreed we cannot amend because it's in the Constitution that the returning officer is the returning officer at the constituency level for the MP and for the MCAs, where results are tallied promptly and announced. You come to the county level, where we have results for the senators, the women rep, and the governor, and you give.
Okay.
Now the presidential, I don't know why now we have a fight that the presidential results cannot come to the national level, be tallied, and be given as presidential result, because already we have the constitutions clearly demarcating each of these where you're supposed to get your results and announcement. Now let me just finish before Sakaja comes in. I want us to be very clear to our country. I remember in 2007, I want to give now an example of Changamwe constituency. The returning officer announced, finished, and was banned. So I want to ask my brothers and sisters in NASA, you want to tell me if the results will not be of your wish when the returning officer is announcing and decides now he announces this. And you've just seen in our nominations what the returning officers have been doing. Somebody just comes and decides the results of Mutula will be the opposite of the results of Elachi. Tell me what chaos we want to bring in now. Or else we have another agenda in all this. Then we must tell Kenyans what we really want in the announcement. And today, may the man rest in peace. Let him respond. No, I'm just saying, the returning officer of Changamwe today went to the grave because of that. Let us not joke. I'm just giving an example of how it can be very nasty as we do this.
Mutula, go ahead.
No, continue. Yeah, but because you guys understand better this constituency.
Don't baptize bad manners.
No, I'm not baptizing. I'm not baptizing. I'm saying what we agree.
There's no worse manners. The correct position under 138C. And by the way, this argument, in law we call it splitting hairs, because there's nothing you're
not even in law, in English.
Yeah, in English. After counting the votes in the polling stations, the Constitution, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission shall tally and verify the count and declare the result of the polling station. Now, when it comes to the announcement under 138.10, the law is also very clear. And in C, it uses the word result. In 10, where the chairman now is announcing, he announces tallies results. Okay. So what you're simply saying, for purposes of 138, Mboni constituency, once they have been announced at the polling stations, he will announce in Mboni. By the way, that's why I'm saying that Sakaja was trying to confuse us. The returning officer, they are now called constituent returning officers, in Mboni cannot declare the president. In Mboni. It's not possible. So then let's not go there. Okay. The point is that the history we have of people switching off their phones on their way to Nairobi. Somebody from Wajiro gets here before the person from Kamkunji. Tharaka-Nithi, those ghosts of Tharaka-Nithi, how do you cure those? Because the law now, and by the way, we did something very interesting, and nobody is mentioning it. That from Tharaka-Nithi, in a particular constituency in Tharaka-Nithi, we don't want them to walk this time or take a donkey.
There's electronic
you transmit the form, not the results, not the numbers. Okay. The form.
Okay.
So
I'll take a break for
just a minute. Because they're talking about the confusion. They're saying I'm confusing Kenyans. Listen.
What are you reading?
Section 14 of the Elections Act. 14 talks about the three categories: constituency returning officers. 14A1 says the constitution returning officer, the commission shall appoint constituency returning officer to tally, announce, and declare final results for member of National Assembly and County Assembly. 14.1b talks about the county returning officer, responsible for tallying, announcement, and declaration of the election of the governor, the senator, the women rep. 14.1c says thereafter that for the purpose of the presidential election, they are transmitted and they are declared by the chairperson. 1d, chairperson of the commission shall declare the results of the election of the president.
Declare is the word.
Declare. Listen, 1ca, you're talking about the electronic transmission in the prescribed form, tally and verify the results, publish the polling, and then they're declared.
Okay.
That is clear. So now why are we taking Kenyans around in circles and we're saying the same thing? Because it has designated, 1A has designated constituency returning officers to deal with member of National Assembly and MCA. Of course, the rest are announced.
The person who will declare
I really have to take a break for highlights. When we come back, we'll continue.
You know what the problem is in this country? That the person who is supposed to understand most is Chebukati and his team. They appear to be more confused than all of us. Because this appears to be straight.
You're taking Kenyans for.
No,
let's take a short break on Sidebar for news highlights.
Why would you want to?
This conversation is not going to end. Jackson, take it away. All right, thanks for staying with Sidebar. My guest is still with me. The argument is still going on, as you can see. But let me play a soundbite from one Willis. He's a constitutional lawyer, Willis Otieno. Here's what he had to say about this whole scandal.
I would expect some other person to file this appeal, but not the commission. If the commission has taken such a strong public position on such a point, my question is this. Assuming, and I hope it will happen this way, the Court of Appeal upholds the decision of the High Court. Will the Commission implement that decision?
Elachi.
Right.
Of course they have to.
They have to.
And that's the same thing that David on Twitter says. IBC should implement the law as it is. Any changes to the law is a sign of rigging.
And I think we are just pushing IBC to the wall, knowing very well Chebukati came in when the select committee had finished its work. We worked with the commission that left. So for me, when he's asking for an interpretation, regardless of what the courts will tell him, I believe he will follow in the end.
Wanga.
So that if anything happens, he takes responsibility. Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing.
What IBC is asking for is not an interpretation. IBC is appealing the decision of the court. And you know, this case was not filed by CORD or NASA or any political party. This case was filed by just the public, Maina Kiai, Halif, you know, and on public interest litigation. Yeah. This is not, it is not a political party issue. So I think Willis is right in the sense that they have taken such a strong position, and then Jubilee have supported them sort of in that position. So everybody else is wondering, what do they know that we don't know?
So because
what we are
now that
saying,
Jubilee seems to be pronouncing itself towards the support of IBC.
As you're introducing Willis, you should have reminded Kenyans that he's also sitting on the appeals tribunal of a political party.
He is.
Not just saying constitutional lawyer, so it means that his comments are also in line with
biased and skewed, and, yes. But even,
I think you all know which party that was. But
having said that,
but the point is this, having said that, I think trying to deny any Kenyan or any institution rights that the Constitution has given it, you know, to seek interpretation, to go to court, anyone can go to court, is what the problem is, as you've heard. And one of the people who called, or rather SMS'd, said, which are these two constitutions that Sakaja is reading and Elachi and Mutula and Gladys have a different copy? Which is this Elections Act, unless there's mischief somewhere, that is the same one that we're disagreeing on. That is precisely why this country has an institution called the judiciary.
Yeah, but Sakaja, would you agree that if Jubilee supports the IBC on this one, then it looks a bit sinister?
We're not supporting, we have no position in court. That's what we were saying. I mean, we're not even, we're not party to it. We're just airing our opinions. If we had strong, you know, views of whether to support or not, we'd have enjoyed ourselves as political parties. But we're saying our problem is how we started this discussion. Why would leaders in this country threaten a court of law based on how they're going to rule? You know, let the court give its determination. If you want to appeal any decision as any institution, you can appeal up until the Supreme Court. But what the court says finally will have to be implemented. Okay. If the court says that even they declared at polling station or whatever, we will accept.
Mutula.
But let that institution do its work. That's the point.
Two things. Yeah. And I must be honest to say that on the part where we as a coalition appear to be put in the same sentence as the majority leader threatening the judiciary, to me is not on. It's not right. But to say this, that my problem is that we sat with the same IEBC. I don't agree with Elachi that since Chebukati came after Ahmed Isaac, therefore he missed the memo and he didn't read the law. The fact is, what is it away from the Constitution and the law that the Commission seeks an interpretation? Yet, while we were drafting the sections, the Constitution has not changed. That's one. Where the Constitution says that in Article 138(2) that the elections will be held in constituencies has not changed, and we never changed. We never touched the Constitution. Where the Constitution says in 138(10) that he will tabulate and tally the results and announce following the criteria in 138(4), we didn't amend it. Now, Sakaja here, he calls himself Super Senator Sakaja.
No, at least so far 168,000 Nairobi. That's what he said. Only 1.5 million.
We passed this law on both sides of the divide without an issue. In the subsequent amendments, we call them the infamous amendments that we did in January, both CORD and Jubilee never touched this section. It only becomes suspicious, and it takes me back to what Githu Muigai said, that in elections, we lose trust with everything. Even a comma, you start doubting. You start doubting it. That's why I'm talking about splitting hairs in an issue which shouldn't have split.
So how come you wouldn't let the judiciary just rule on it?
No, I've already stated my
You don't
position,
believe that they will
that
rule
the IEBC should not have come out as a protagonist in an issue where first they participated in drafting of the law in the amendments to the Elections Act. Right. The only thing that we changed, and I must tell Kenyans, is that we changed the position where from constituency Mboni in Makueni, the returning officer used to send the results to the county in Wote, and then the person from Wote then sends them to Nairobi. Now, what
used to announce them there as well?
Yeah, used to many announcements everywhere. Yeah. But now you've limited it to what the Constitution says, that you announce at polling stations, you finish at constituencies and submit the result for all the wards and all the respective polling stations. Okay. And that is, so you have 290 results. Okay. What IEBC is supposed to do in Chebukati is count, like we were saying with Gladys Wanga, Mboni 15,000, Homa Bay 20, you to 35. And then, therefore, go to the 50+1. Who got 50+1?
I have to take a break for the news now. When we come back, we are spilling this into the news, so just hold your horses. We're taking a short break for the news. Taking a short break here for the news.
This is a very fundamental
30 seconds,
issue.
Yes.
This is a very, very fundamental issue. And I think maybe splitting hairs to some, but maybe in the discussion we're having here, but the issue that we are raising is fundamental in the sense that when results are announced on TV, from Mboni constituency or from Homa Bay town, Trevor, you should be able here at NTV to add them and to tell Kenyans who is the president of Kenya without waiting for some shenanigans from
All right. Let's take a break. We'll be back with this. This discussion will never end. Let's take a break. Jackson. What do you make of what I said and Ole Kaparo's alarm?
You know, it's true. I chair the Joint Committee of Senate and National Assembly on national cohesion. You know, I think the NCAC chair and his commission, you know, with all due respect, they better find something better to do. You know, if NASA wants to say 10 million strong, let them say it. As we're saying 45 million strong, all Kenyans are with us. We are saying 70%+1. It is political rhetoric. Let people say it. You know, right now we have big issues of interethnic conflict in parts of this country. Look at Laikipia. And Honorable Elachi, Senator Elachi is a member of my committee. You know, my committee has just left a tour of Western Bungoma. We're going to Garissa and Kitui tomorrow to deal with the real issues. These are the issues. Leave politics to politicians.
The argument is that if you don't attain those numbers, then you will say something went wrong.
Cool.
No, but we've also said 70%, 70+1. So why is it that they're only talking about NASA? And Jubilee saying the same thing. You know, let's be objective. Let's be objective on some things. I'm not supporting NASA. Them they're saying 10 million strong. As we're saying 45 million strong. So it's okay. We're saying all Kenyans are with us. I mean, that's political rhetoric. Leave it to politicians.
What we need to ask ourselves as a country is that how you say it, just the same way we normally come to you guys and say your opinion poll is not right, look at the media, how they've done it. But in the end, Kenyans are the main opinion poll, they are the main 10 million plus, they are the main 70+1. They will teach us a lesson on August 8th.
All right.
Yeah, I actually want to agree with this. My friend, Super Senator Sakaja. Yes. But the point is, where was Kaparo when we were having political party nominations? People, the violence, the political party nominations. Is that it's like this gentleman was in Addis Ababa on holiday, and all of a sudden he has come to Kenya and he has found all this thing that he didn't know what it was talking about. It's called political rhetoric. So I agree with Sakaja to the extent that one, in Kaiseri, instead of responding to political rhetoric, because the deputy president you have run is clearly talking about 70+1. If you do the calculations, it's actually more than 10 million. Yeah. So instead of responding to political rhetoric and looking as if he has a brief, what he should be telling Kenyans is that he's not panicking, whether it's 10 million, whether it's 70+1, is to say, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the ministry, we have enough security to to ensure you have a peaceful election. I'm not worried about all these things. But I mean, the man looks as if he's panicking on his chair.
I just want to say, Shirley, these guys have just come out of the woodwork and found that the people they called idealess, clueless, are actually having very brilliant ideas in terms of mobilizing their people to come out. So really, I think it's, I just don't see it as Nkaiseri and Kaparo. Yeah. I see the hands of a very shocked, scared government that is getting out of power and can't just fathom it. This is just the beginning of intimidation. Every foot we step, we will see Nkaiseri saying, if you walk like that, Wanga, as if you're catwalking, we are going to put you in. I think that is going to be the next level.
Let me play your sound from the Chief Justice, David Maraga. He mentioned that there's an intimidation aura going on. Let's listen into this.
The judges know their duty. Yes. They will live by their oaths of office, and they are not going to be influenced in any manner whatsoever by any statements that will be made. Politicians and other members of the public to let the judiciary do its work as it is required to do, and we don't want any statements that may suggest that we are being directed to do this or that.
Wanga, are you intimidating the judiciary? And by you, I mean NASA.
I don't see any level of intimidation. We are just expressing our opinion as far as a very clear matter that is in court is. I think he may consider it intimidation, but we are also responding based on history. You remember that when the president went to Kisii, he mentioned that Chief Justice Maraga, and with all due respect, and I do not want to cast aspersions on his character, was a gift from Jubilee to the Kisii people.
He didn't precisely say that. He just said the Chief Justice Mzima ametoka hii area yenu.
Tumewapea.
That doesn't mean
you know, he gifted them.
Okay, that is actually the fact that it comes from that area.
No. He said it for the president to say it. Yeah. You know, he was listing what Jubilee has given Kisses. You have the CS for education here, who is now the CS for lands. You have so and so, and you also have the Chief Justice among the political appointees. So this is the environment. This is the context within which we are operating as we move forward.
So in other words, NASA fears Maraga is sort of not is a bit biased with Jubilee. Is that what Wanga wants to tell Kenyans to do?
No. I've already given the respect.
I don't know whether you know. I don't know whether you've been to the judiciary, the Supreme Court building. There's a statue there of some...
the naked truth it stands for.
Naked truth, Hear no evil, speak no evil. Yeah. You know, the Chief Justice should not appear as if he had those statements. It's like when you go to court and the judges look at you and say, by the way, I saw you on TV yesterday. What were you saying? The court is not supposed to hear these things. The court is not supposed to respond to everything that is said in every little corner, because now they will go into Twitter and ask me questions. The point is that, and I must say to the country, that we have a very good judiciary. And that judiciary should not appear as if it's listening or reading comments.
But you want them to rule in a certain way,
no, especially not at all. In fact, what we have done as code, and maybe you are aware, and NASA, is that we are going to make the arguments. Trust me, when the matter goes to court and you have lawyers there from NASA, none of them is going to say, and I can tell you that for free, none of them is going to say, if you don't rule in our favor, we are going to protest.
You already mentioned it. You said that if this appeal goes through, you're not going to...
When the judge is writing, when the judge is taking...
boycotting the election.
Listen, boss. When the judge is writing his notes in court on 16th of June or whatever date it is, nobody is going to make that submission. So as far as I'm concerned, whatever is said outside the presence of the courtroom should not be responded to by the court.
All right.
What Mutula is asking for, is a very dangerous thing. Given the history this country has had, of people seeing chaos being fomented in advance, a similar pattern to what we've seen before. You're telling the custodians of justice who are being addressed directly, the Chief Justice, the judiciary, that, if you don't do this, we are going to bring chaos to this country, to do what happened last time. Let's all bury our heads in the sand and just wait and see this thing happening. I think any responsible Kenyan would not support that kind of intimidation. What he's saying is a legalistic thing, that the judge is blind to anything else apart from what is before him, you know.
Exactly.
But this legalistic
approach-ness,
you know, in Nairobi we say these things, is sometimes what leads us, you know, to the labyrinth in this country, and brings these issues. You know what we must remember, as leaders, you know, as politicians in CORD and Jubilee. I know the election is coming close, that we have one country, and it is our words. You know, you might say, you know, that you'll say it in the rally, but it won't happen when you go to court. The words that we speak as leaders are listened to by our children, by young people. Let us not create crisis in this country just because we want to win an election.
And that is a good place to end it, because I also want you to give me your final brief on how we make sure the elections will be peaceful.
Can I just say something on that matter? And my small addition is, what is being said in political rallies only underscores how important, how fundamentally important the matter that is being addressed is. It is so important in the electoral process that we safeguard, you know, and we want to have a peaceful country, and we want to have one country, but we want to have a fair. Nobody has promised chaos. All we said, nobody promised chaos. All we said is going into an election under an environment that results can actually be manipulated after leaving constituencies is like going to no election at all.
Okay, Mutula, very briefly, we're running out of time.
My last comments, I've said this before. When we sat in the Joint Select Committee, we were very clear that going forward, that's where IEBC, I think, have taken a tangent. Going forward, you call Sakaja, you call Wanga, you call Mutula, you call everybody on the board, and then we sit and monitor our elections as we go along. When are we going to test these kits that they brought? What are we going to do with the audit of the register? Those things should be communicated more often, as opposed to where the IEBC, the referee, seems to be enter into the field and wear a uniform and start playing football. When ideally IEBC should remain a little above board our usual political rhetoric, because there are things Sakaja says. I've had politicians say, I'm going to do this, you can take me to court if you want. So the point I'm making is that for the purposes of the independent institutions, those fellows must operate above Sakaja and I. They must turn a blind eye to some of those things so that then they can play a fair arbiter.
All right, Senator Lachi,
I think
very briefly, 10 seconds.
The best thing we can do is give IEBC a chance to do their work. They have a right to go to court. It is for the court to decide for them what will happen. But at the same time, I think also politicians, we need to ask our political parties what is happening. I know already if it's transmissions of results, they were doing a sample the other day. I don't know why WIPA hasn't known that. And they are prompting every. I'm just saying.
Just let her finish.
I'm just giving you an example that you're
you know, these are the things that get you into trouble as Jubilee.
No.
That you know more things than us.
It's not. We know. It is clear. They announced also
we don't know more
that
that's why you hear about the referendum.
We have a clear committee.
We are starting a whole new discussion here.
Me and Mutula know very well. We have a committee of IT experts that we gave in, and they are doing their work.
I think to save this country next time, let us not allow amendments and changes to the law like 5 months to an election.
All right. So like it's about to happen right now.
Let us have a Kenya where an election, the biggest expression of sovereignty of a people of a country, bring them together as opposed to dividing them.
We have to leave it there, gentlemen. Honorable Beatrice Elachi, nominated Senator and also Dagoretti North Member of Parliament candidate. Honorable Gladys Wanga, Homa Bay Women Representative. Honorable Johnson Sakaja, nominated Member of Parliament and Nairobi Senate candidate. He calls himself Super Senator. And Honorable Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Makueni Senator. Thanks for making time for us this evening.